Death in D.C. Boko Haram. Kidnapping of over 300 Nigerian Catholic students and teachers. Hong Kong disaster. Would it have happened under the British? This is Dr. David D. Schein for Saving America. And welcome to my own take on key stories from the past week focused on business and politics. And I have a boatload of stories for you. Death in D.C. By now, I believe my audience knows that two brave West Virginia National Guard members were shot and one died in the District of Columbia. They were providing security to residents and visitors to Washington, D.C. Sarah Beckstrom was only 20 years old and died on Thanksgiving. Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, only 24, remains in critical condition. I want to extend my heartfelt sympathies to Sergeant Wolf and the families of both of them. This should not have happened. Per legal protocol, I am required to say that the alleged shooter, despite apparent detailed videos of the shooting, was a 29-year-old Afghan national. He was a support asset to the CIA during the years of the USA presence in his country. He was evacuated with many others after the bumbling Biden-Harris administration abandoned the country and the valuable airfields in the worst retreat in American history. The problem is that this guy was hired to help the U.S. kill Taliban. He was not vetted for admission to this country as a future resident and member of our society. Therefore, they really don't know what this guy was really like. Further, some have suggested he was radicalized after he got here about 4 years ago. Others have suggested PTSD. I don't like that suggestion since the death penalty is on the table. The last thing we need is him getting off on a mental defect defense. No matter what, America needs to do a better job of vetting people coming to this country. Boko Haram kidnapping of over 300 Nigerian Catholic students and teachers. Nigeria is not a poor country. It's been selling oil to the rest of the world. Boko Haram is an Islamic terrorist group that started around 2009 in Nigeria with their aim to impose Sharia law on the people and create terror for the sensible people of Nigeria. Why the Nigerian government did not crush this movement earlier is beyond me. It will be harder now, obviously. On top of a history of tragedy in Nigeria, mostly consisting of mass murders and kidnapping of Christians and burning of churches, we have a new tragedy. At least 315 Catholic students and teachers were kidnapped by Boko Haram. Even the Pope has now called for their safe return. He should have called for a new crusade to exterminate this threat, not just to Nigerian Christians, but to civilization itself. The odd twisted story is that 50 of the children somehow escaped and are safe with their families. Then there was another mass kidnapping about a week earlier of 25 girls. 2 teachers were killed in the attack. The reports are that one of the girls escaped and the other 24 have now been freed. Details are lacking. I don't know if that means a ransom was paid. Of course, the problem with paying ransom is it encourages more kidnappings, right? According to the AP, since 2014, there have been at least 1,799 students have been kidnapped since then. Better security by the facilities backed by serious police and armed forces protection is a necessity. This show is called Saving America. The attempts in the U.S. and around the world to disrupt Judeo-Christian value system is real and increasing. This threat should make every sensible American very concerned, even if you're not religious. Speaking of who is concerned and not concerned, where are the Muslim clerics who should be condemning these horrific acts? I am hearing crickets from that group. These clerics claim to want to be accepted by leaders and followers of other religions, so they need to join the good guys. Otherwise, their silence does the talking for them. The U.S. State Department has begun to rattle sanctions after Trump came out strongly against the continued Christian genocide. That should have happened already. I understand the U.S. provides foreign aid to Nigeria. Time to stop every penny until we show themselves worthy of the support that we give them. We should also be boycotting their oil or other exports like we do for Russia and other offending countries. Job market report is double expectations. Due to the Dems' record-long shutdown of the government, the September jobs report was delayed. However, it was a shot of good news for the Trump administration, with about 119,000 jobs created versus the 50,000 jobs which were projected. However, the unemployment rate did tick up a little bit to 4.4% from 4.3%, still well below the historic number of 5% for full employment. The latest economic data is also a positive, with good economic growth in the private sector, although somewhat muted by the Dems government shutdown. There is now talk of a GOP plan to reduce the cost of health care. Let's see how far that goes. The Dems claim that their damaging record government shutdown was over health care costs. Let's see if they cooperate with the GOP now. SCOTUS jumps into Texas redistricting. Action is rolling on the redistricting front. I am sure that my audience is aware of the roller coaster of Texas changing its district maps in time for the 2026 primaries, and in retaliation, Gavin No Sense got California to redistrict. Well, if that was not enough, the Texas redistricting plan was challenged in federal court. A three-judge panel of district court judges voted 2-1 against this plan by issuing an injunction. And that would affect the 2026 lines, claiming that the new districts were racially discriminatory. This was the headline news. Well, SCOTUS has scooped the headline, with Justice Alito issuing a stay on their injunction until there's a full hearing on the merits. That means the new district lines may be the ones in effect for the 2026 primary, which is coming up fast. As I've said recently, I can't wait for those new congressional districts, since that gives me a chance at having at least a half-competent member of Congress. I've been in District 18 for a long time and have never had a decent congressional rep in the many years I've lived here. With sky-high beef prices, a surprise announcement. Major food producer Tyson Foods has announced that it's going to close its largest beef plant in Nebraska. The cover story is that due to the reduced demand for beef, its other plants can cover the demand. Part of the issue is that cattle production itself is way down, so there's a reduced supply of cattle for the processing plants. Getting cattle ready for market is a 4-year process, so this simple issue cannot be handled without increasing the supply. Of course, if Tyson and other producers lowered their prices, demand might pick up. After all, Americans love their steaks and burgers. This is a tough break for the over 3,000 employees at that plant, as well as beef-eating Americans. Prices will likely stay the same or increase as a result of this announcement. Trump recently announced that he would be reducing tariffs on beef from certain countries, so that could help the supply side and increase the demand for the processing facilities. So we're going to see how that all works out, right? Hong Kong disaster. Would it have happened under the British? The CCP cannot be trusted. That is an absolute truth of our time. When the British control of Hong Kong ended in the mid-1990s, the deal with mainland China was that as much as possible, it would be a self-governing operation. Of course, the CCP did not honor that deal with the Brits for even a few minutes after the Brits surrendered control. The smart residents fled in large numbers prior to that takeover. A stunning human tragedy has taken place in Hong Kong, and videos have been broadcast on the world stage. 7 buildings of a group of high-rise buildings burst into flames. The CCP admits to 128 dead, which means the number is probably much higher. This was due to renovations being done with bamboo scaffolding and, amazingly, highly combustible styrofoam being used around the windows. Later reports indicate that the fire alarms did not work in any of the 8 high-rises. This kind of shoddy work is a highlight of China under the CCP. Like Xi's buddy Putin, they do not value human life. Many of our younger generation do not know about the failure known as the USSR or the Iron Curtain. You can educate them with this and many other failures and murders taking place under the CCP and Putin. A member of Congress reportedly texted with Jeffrey Epstein during his congressional testimony a few years ago. As I've said before, I cannot make this stuff up. So the story is that a Dem representative from the U.S. Virgin Islands actually texted with pedophile Jeffrey Epstein while he was testifying in Congress in 2016. The representative's name is Stacey Plaskett. I've never heard of her and did not know that the USVI even had a representative. She admits that she knew Epstein. After all, he was a big Dem donor. However, she claims that she did not know he was a pedophile at the time she was texting with him. Keep in mind that Epstein pled guilty to solicitation of prostitution and solicitation of a minor for prostitution in 2008 in exchange for a sweetheart deal. He served 13 months of an 18-month sentence in jail. So I'm incredulous that she could claim that she did not know this in 2016. To add to the humor, disgrace to Texas and America, Dem Representative Jasmine Crockett claimed it was no big deal since Jeffrey Epstein had also donated to some GOP candidates. The problem for that moron is that these were one or more other Jeffrey Epsteins, not the one who was the pedophile. Tough luck, Miss Crockett. Returning to the jobs front, Verizon just announced a big layoff. Verizon has announced the company will lay off 13,000 workers. In the past weeks, I've covered major cutbacks at other companies. These large companies often pay better and have very good employee benefit plans. The challenge is going to be for these employees to find comparable opportunities in a difficult job market. Despite the somewhat rosy job picture I mentioned earlier, my man on the street feedback is that a lot of recent college grads are having trouble finding jobs. I am not sure if all of this is due to the AI boom. Open to suggestions from my audience. China attacking America using AI. Well, maybe some of those who were let go by Verizon can upskill and help in the new battle with communist China. Reports are that there have been some recent hacking episodes of important government facilities and major businesses that were accomplished without human input by using AI. The hacks apparently exploited Anthropic's Claude AI. I do not have the tech savvy to fully understand how this works, but I know it's really bad. We won the first Cold War by outsmarting and outgunning the USSR. To win this Cold War, we have to get on board and outmatch and outsmart the CCP. This is not going to be easy, but I have confidence that Americans and their allies can do this. It will take a solid, coordinated effort. No losers like the Biden and Harris in the White House. Elimination of weak commies and socialists at home with our allies abroad in full cooperation. I therefore support the president's push for America to be number one in AI. That is not just on the commercial side, but also in blocking AI use against America and developing devastating weapons to counteract the CCP and other actors' ability to invade the U.S. and our allies through AI. Time to be in the lead across the board. Senator Ernst reveals real use of food stamps. We conservatives are painted by the left as uncaring about the poor. This is absolutely not true. In particular, I want to see the really poor get the help they need. However, if I give someone taxpayer money for food, I want it to go for good food. In a stunning report, one of the senators from Iowa revealed that $524 million in food stamps were used to buy fast food, not healthy groceries. That is now called SNAP. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. As the word nutrition would imply, this money should be used for real nutrition, not junk food. As my regular audience members know, I try to wrap each episode of Saving America with something different and interesting. I know that many of us are curious about how humankind evolved. I certainly am. We were told that somewhere way back, the apes came first. Not sure about that myself. In any event, modern man was identified as being evolutionary descendants of the Neanderthals. That part is pretty well settled, but how do we get this diverse multiracial mix from one strain of ancestors? Part of the problem, of course, is that the origins go so far back in time. It is tough to find evidence of our human ancestors. One fairly recent clue is the 2015 discovery of remains in a French cave of a jaw, dated to about 42,000 years ago. Naturally, they extracted the DNA to explore this discovery. However, the scientists evaluating this jaw somehow determined that it did not share the genetics with other nearby Neanderthals of the same time period. In other words, some type of hermit clan that did not hang with the others was from that period. Thorin, as the scientists named him, did not share specific genetics with other groups of Neanderthals that were within a 2-week walk. I again have no clue how the scientists worked all this out. Perhaps the time period was so brutal that they preferred to stay separate for their own safety. I say this since touring a remote village in far northern Scotland, the Orkney Islands, a few years ago. This remote sect of early humans disappeared after a while. The scientists theorized that they moved due to the sea level changing. However, given how remote this group was, an equally possible theory is that they died out due to inbreeding. In modern society, we prohibit marriages within 3 degrees of direct lineal consanguinity. The reason for this goes back to Roman times. Apparently, they discovered if you reproduce too close to your own genetic family, then the likelihood of inherited genetic defects increases dramatically. In other words, crossbreeding strengthens the human race, and we've discovered that with animals. So the further we go back, the more we learn about our distant past. This is Dr. David D. Schein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.